Hello everyone, my name is Kiko. I have been on a high raw vegan diet for over 20 years, and today I have a special uh, woman, super special woman, who is well known in this raw vegan community, Anne Osbourne, who has been living on only on fruits for 34 years. And she's super active, and she's one of the sweetest and kindest person I know. So I'm so excited and honored to have her today on my channel. Thank you so much, Anne, for coming to my channel.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here today and do the interview. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited for today's interview. And, obviously you have been interviewed by so many people now, but yeah, I we decided, before going online, we decided we go as a flow, and maybe you can update us what you have been up to, and well, this whole journey, the long journey of starting as raw vegan, and then shifting to well, starting as vegan, and then
Mm.
shifting to raw vegan, and then fully Fruitarian for 34 years. I have enormous respect for someone like you because I started raw vegan journey over 20 years ago, and I was living in New York City, so it was easier, but it was still quite a tough road. You had to deal with so many criticism because we are still a minority. I mean, still a minority now, and back in 20 years ago, and now you have started long before. So I have deep respect for you, someone like you. So yes, if you can share, your journey on how you started and why you decide to keep on this, stay on this diet.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I started out, I was concerned about the welfare of animals, and I decided when I left home to become vegetarian. And so the moment I left home, I didn't eat animals anymore. And then I became aware of some of the practices in the dairy industry. And although I really loved my dairy products, I came to a point where I could no longer eat them and feel good because I was aware of the suffering that went on. So me and a friend, we decided that's it. We're going to go vegan overnight. And when I'd gone on to being a vegetarian, I hadn't really noticed any change in my health. I never really liked meat, so I didn't eat a lot of it. But the very next day after I gave up all animal products and became vegan, I was climbing up the hill. I was at university at the time in the UK, and I lived at the bottom of the hill, and the university campus was at the top of the hill. So every day I had to climb up the hill. And every day, by the time I got to the top of the hill, I was tight in my chest and I was wheezy. And the very next day, after I gave up all animal products, I was at the top of the hill and it suddenly hit me, I'm not wheezing and I'm not tight in the chest. And it was a real revelation because it was the very next day after I'd given up animal products, that connection was really strong. And I hadn't looked for any health benefits. It was purely ethical. I was 20 years old at the time. I was in what I thought was reasonably good health. I didn't have any major health issues. And so to find that giving up animal products had changed my health, I had to kind of really think about, well, what's this connection between what we put in our bodies and how we feel? And so from that moment on, I was interested in the connection between diet and health. And I tried various types of vegan diet. I tried the Anne Wigmore vegan diet, which is more of a raw vegan, lots of wheatgrass and sprouts. I tried a macrobiotic vegan diet, and I tried a general whole foods vegan diet. And I felt really good on all of them, but not that good that I stuck with any one of them for more than about 18 months. And then when I was 24, I went to a meeting. I was part of a local animal rights group in my hometown of Leicester in the UK. And we had different speakers. And one evening we had a speaker who was a fruitarian, and his name was David Shelley. and he just looked great. He had lots of energy, he was vibrant, and obviously whatever he was doing was working really well for him. And there was a whole group of us, and we were all ethical vegans, and we all thought, yeah, we want some of what he's got. We want to try this because it just seems to make so much sense, and he's doing really well on it. Now, I was in the early stages of my first pregnancy at the time, so I decided to do a transitional period because I didn't want to do anything too drastic if it was going to affect the baby inside me. And so I had a transition period of about 12 to 14 months where I was eating mostly fruit, and then I would have the odd bit of cooked food. And then at the end of the transitional period, I went on to a 100% fruit diet. And I've never really looked back because I've tried different types of vegan diet, including quite healthy vegan diets, and the fruitarian diet just ticked all the boxes ethically, environmentally, and physically. And what was really useful was when I started out, there was about 5 or 6 of us because we'd all been to this talk and we were all enthusiastic and we all wanted to get a piece of what David Shelley had. And so we formed an organic fruit buying group, which I think was a huge, important step in really thriving on the diet because in the UK there isn't a lot of really good quality organic fruit, and certainly not all year round. So we were able to access really good quality organic fruit from all around the world at a reasonable price because we got it wholesale. And I think that was crucial in succeeding on the diet because I really think that one of the fundamentals to thriving long term on a fruit diet is the quality of the fruit for so many reasons. I could talk for hours just on the quality of fruit, but really, really important. And the second thing was we had this social interaction and contact and support because I think when a lot of people start out on a different type of diet or a different type of lifestyle, they can feel isolated. And especially pre-internet, they might never ever contact anybody who's on a similar kind of diet, or it might just be letters. But we had there was 5 or 6 of us all starting out, all enthusiastic about this new diet. So I think for me, they were, very important factors. Having the buying group and having a bunch of close friends who were all on the same journey. And I haven't really looked back because the fruit diet works for me on so many levels. Obviously, it has to work on a health level. It's no good if it ticks all the other boxes if you don't feel well on it, if you don't thrive on it, if you can't do what you want to do every day. But also, I find it a very spiritual kind of diet. I feel a connection with the wider world being on this diet. And environmentally, especially if we're eating organic fruit, if we're growing some of it ourselves, if we're eating local fruit that's not sprayed, that doesn't have glyphosates on it, then we really are having a much more minimal impact on the environment. And ethically, of course, I think vegan is the ethical side of it for me. But also, I think with the fruitarianism, when you're eating fruit, you're not killing the plants either, which I really like. And we have this symbiotic relationship with the plants. So we get the fruit, and in return, we plant the seeds. And that's kind of how nature makes sense. And the trees and the plants make all this beautiful fruit that's really delicious, really appealing when it's ripe. If you go past a peach tree, when all the peaches are ripe, or a mango tree, and the smell when you pick a ripe mango or a ripe peach, and you don't have to do anything else. All you have to do is pick that piece of fruit and eat it and do something with the seeds in return, and that propagates the plant.
I,
So,
yeah, I'm sorry. May I ask you a few questions because you've
yeah,
been yeah. So David Shelley is he still? I don't know how old he is, but are you in contact with him? Is he still fruitarian?
I am in contact with him.
Wow.
He's still vegan, but he's not raw vegan anymore. But yes, because he wrote this book um, called Fruit, the Food of Truth. And it was a wonderful book, a little pamphlet. And I read that at the start of my journey. And it was out of publication. And lots of people said to me, oh, I'd love a copy of David Shelley's book. So I used to go down to the local photocopying place and they used to photocopy the book and then I would send it off and it went all around the world. And then the book started to get old and my local printer went out of business. So I took it to another place and they were very, very rough with this old pamphlet and pages started to come out. So I thought, I can't photocopy this anymore, but people still want it.
Mm.
So I endeavoured to get in touch with David Shelley and find him because I wanted to say to him, hey, David, can I turn this book into a PDF so I can send it to people? And through a mutual friend who got in contact with David, I then got in contact with David and got his permission. So now I have this PDF copy of his book and I send it out. So yes, I'm still in contact with him. Yeah.
Well, I have read your book as well, and that was so beautiful. And I felt like, you were so generous, and you shared the ebook with me. And when I was reading your book, I really felt like it was like a paradise book. I felt like I was able to feel myself in your book, which was like a paradise, and it just makes sense ethically, and yes, it just to me it's logical as well. Like, it's a human food. You just pick, when it's right and smells so good, and you just pick, and there's no tools needed, right? So
Yes.
beautiful. And you were mentioning that you moved. Yeah, the quality of fruits is so important, and
Mm.
therefore where you are living, you are happy with the quality of food, and also community. Do you have a community of fruitarians or?
Not so much here. This was when I was in Leicester in the UK when I first started out on my fruitarian journey. There are quite a few raw fooders and some fruitarians in Queensland where I currently live, but it's very spaced out. So day to day, I don't physically come into contact with other people on a similar diet, but I am in contact online. And I think with the advent of festivals, fruit festivals, that has been a really good way for people to connect. So I used to work for the Woodstock Fruit Festival and I used to go every year and I
Right.
used to go to the UK festival and the Danish festival as well. And it was almost like you go to these events and everybody's eating in a similar way to you and there's lots of similarities and there's not any kind of judgment and it was just like the energy at these events was wonderful and you'd feel like your batteries were charged up and you could go away and you could not see anyone for a whole year but you'd still have this kind of energy inside you from those events, so they were a really lovely way to connect with people.
Right. The Woodstock Fruit Festival. When did it start?
It started 2011 was the first Woodstock Fruit Festival. Yeah, and that
Okay.
was that was in Menla, and then after that it moved to Camp Walden, and then the past couple of years it's been in a different location. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is there any such festival in Australia or?
There was. I keep thinking that I should start an Australian fruit festival.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think it was 2015 they had one, but it hasn't been on since. But I think, especially in Australia, in our summer, in our wet season, when there's all the really good fruit, and for those in the northern hemisphere, it would be a great opportunity to come over to the southern hemisphere and get some good fruit in the middle of their winter. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's something that I've thought about, and it definitely would be a great idea to get something going again in Australia. So yeah.
Yes, I would so appreciate that because I'm closer to Australia than than going away to the States. But like for the quality of fruits wise, because you have gone to so many places, right?
Hmm.
What do you think where you are and compared to where you have been?
I think far north Queensland is probably one of the best places that I've been to in terms of fruit, variety, quality, and
Really?
availability. Yeah, I think we have to be mindful in Australia, the soil is quite old. So it's important to source from places that grow organically or biodynamically or really look after their soils. but I think Australia has such a variety of climates. It's such a big country that you've got Mediterranean climates, you've got temperate climates down in Tasmania, and you've got tropical in far north Queensland, you've got subtropical in southeast Queensland. So the variety of fruits that can be grown in Australia is immense because you've got grapes down south, you've got mangoes up north, you've got durians up far north. So when I lived in southeast Queensland, there was a great variety of fruits, but I must say far north Queensland is the best and reasonably priced as well. So yeah, and also the possibility it's got a long growing season where we are, so you can grow different fruit throughout the year. Like at the moment, avocados and citrus are in season, bananas are year round. And then in the wetter months, you get the bigger variety of fruits such as durian and mangosteen, rambutans, mangoes. So yeah,
And
it's a fantastic
yeah,
place.
those first tropical fruits that you mentioned, we think about Southeast Asia, and
Mm,
you have been there also, right? And even
mm.
compared to those Southeast tropical island places, you think the quality in Queensland is good?
I think it holds up pretty well. I'd probably say Brunei, of all the places I've been to, was possibly the best. And Bali as well was good. Yeah. But
Brunei.
I think Australia, there's a lot of people in Australia that are passionate about growing fruit. There's a lot of fruit associations, so there's a lot of rare fruit groups, and there's a lot of hobby growers that are sort of bringing rare varieties into Australia and growing them. So I do think Australia is one of the best places, um, but you have to be mindful of the soils because the soils vary. In some places, the soils are a lot poorer than others. Some places it's volcanic and it's pretty good, and people that grow really good quality produce will enrich their soils. We've got neighbours, and they've been at their place, I think, about probably 12 or 13 years, and they're still building the soils up. They still every week get lots of good matter to put in their soil. So it's an ongoing thing. And their garden is like a lush jungle, and you can see the results of them building up the soil. So I think Australia's brilliant. Some areas have poorer soil. So if you want to grow fruit here, it's important to build up your soils, get the compost going in, get the seaweed going in, and don't use any chemicals or sprays, and you can.
Are you
It's
growing
a
any,
process.
are you growing any fruits trees?
Yes, yeah, yes. There were some fruit trees here when we moved in, quite a few, and we put a lot more in. So we sort of aiming towards self-sufficiency. That's a long road because you have a lot of competition with weather, with insects, with other animals that like fruit. So you can put in a lot of fruit trees. That doesn't mean to say that you're going to be able to feed yourself very easily. But yes, we've got lots of different varieties. We are in the tropics, but we're high elevation. So that means we have a subtropical climate. So we can't grow durians or mangosteens or rambutans here, but we can grow most of the other tropical fruits such as jackfruit, cempedec, mangoes, pineapples, bananas. So yeah, we have a wide variety of fruits. We've also got some more temperate fruits such as peach cots, which is a cross between a peach and an apricot. So they'll grow. Figs will grow here as well. And we have planted an apple tree, but it's doing all right. But whether it will ever fruit, I don't know. But because we do get some cold nights here, so we can grow citrus, avocados, and things like that as well. High
Wow, I
altitude
didn't know
fruit.
that you can. I thought apple has to be in a place that's very cold. Here in Japan, it's Nagano, and like northern part of Japan grows good apples. So that's so. What are you? What kind of fruits do you have now at the moment that you can eat off of your
Yeah.
land?
So we have bananas. So bananas isn't a tree, it's like a herb. So a banana will fruit pretty soon after you put it in. In a couple of years or less, you will get fruit off a banana plant. papayas, chocolate sapote or black sapote, they're just coming into season. So we've got some beautiful old trees here. So they've got a lot of fruit on at the moment. I'm just starting to get the first few fruits. Berries, we've got a native raspberry, which is native to this area, which is the Atherton tableland. So that's the native Atherton raspberry. That's got a lot of fruit on it at the moment. We have put in some citrus trees, but they're only young ones, so they're yet to fruit. So citrus is in season here. So if we had established citrus trees, we'd be getting some nice oranges at the moment.
I just
Avocados
I
as
just
well.
I just got Caracara orange from and also grapefruits from Australia. We are getting more and more fruits from
Yes,
Australia. Sorry to disturb you.
yes, because I follow on Instagram, I follow some of the Australian citrus growers, and they are exporting a lot more fruit worldwide, which is really good because the Australian citrus is excellent. And at the moment, we've got blood oranges in season, like the true blood orange, and they are so good. And they're grown in the south of Australia, and the area where they're grown is very similar to Sicily in Italy, where the blood orange originated. So they've sort of mimicked the climate and the soils of the Mediterranean, and they are very, very good, the
I
Australian blood oranges.
Yeah, I saw your Instagram on blood orange juice that you made. It looks
Yeah.
so red. And I've never had the one from Australia, but when I went to Italy, I was in heaven. I never knew such a beautiful and, perfect fruits existed on this earth. And I tried it by when I was traveling in Italy. It was just, wow, I had to find, it's very difficult to find a really good blood orange. But
Mm.
yours on Instagram looks so heavenly.
Yes, yeah, it's the beginning of the season here. So in the Northern Hemisphere, in Europe, it's usually around March, I think, the blood oranges start, and we start around about August. And they have been particularly good this year. Often the early ones are a bit tart, but these are sort of sweet, but they have that really nice tartness as well, very complex. And the great thing about blood oranges is they have anthocyanins in, which is the purple pigment that you get in like blackberries and blueberries that is so good for you. So you've got the goodness of berries combined with the goodness of citrus. So it's like a double whammy. You've got, they're just a superfood, I think. And with the caracaras, they're also good, but they have lycopene in. They don't have the anthocyanin in. They have lycopene, which is what's in tomato. So they have a different pigment, which has, different benefits. So it's. I think when you get those colours in citrus, you're getting the benefits of citrus plus a little bit extra as well, which is great.
Along that line, I'm wondering, and I'm sorry that I'm cutting you off every time because you're sharing something so interesting, and maybe I'm just jumping off something very far, but your skin is so hydrated and you're so plump, and it looks so nice. And I was speaking to Chris Kendall yesterday about skincare. What do you use? Because you run, you're very active, right?
Mm.
And Chris mentioned that hydrating before going to sun is very important. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I think hydration is very, very important, and I think we have to be mindful, especially if we're living in a hot climate. And when it's hotter here, especially if I'm exercising a lot, if I'm working out in the garden, I will drink a lot of water. Even if I'm having all juicy fruit, I will still need a lot of water. Whereas in the cooler months here, I still drink water, but not as much. And the thing is about our kidneys, we can't see if they're being damaged. There aren't often a lot of overt symptoms of dehydration. So we really do need to be mindful that we're taking in enough water and also mindful of our environment. So at the moment we're in winter, which is great because you can be out sort of all day doing the gardening and you're not getting too much sun. But in the summer here, you really need to have that siesta thing in that If you need to work in the garden, you've got to do it early or after about 4 p.m. because the middle of the day, it's very, very fierce, very, very strong and very dehydrating, the sun, and also the UV rays are very intense. Anywhere high altitude, it feels cooler, but the UV, you're still on that same latitude for your UV. So we might be, 8 degrees centigrade cooler than Cairns, but we've got the same UV. So it's always a good idea to check the UV index. I do that. I have an app on my phone where I check the UV index. And I don't really believe in sunscreens apart from something like zinc oxide, because a lot of the sunscreens have carcinogens in, they have nano molecules in that actually get into your body. And the skin is our biggest organ. So what we put on our skin, we absorb. So for myself, I'll put on just like a natural skin balm, which is made in Queensland, and it just has, I think, avocado oil, olive oil in. Use that, but also use hats, use shirts. If I'm out mowing in the summer, rather than put on sunscreen, I'll put on a t-shirt or a shirt and cover up so that you don't get too much sun. We need the sun. The sun's vitally important for vitamin D and many, many other things. But we have to be balanced, like everything. We have to be balanced with it and not go in it when it's going to burn us or harm our skin. And having said that, this, Australia is kind of punishing on your skin. So yeah, more reasons to keep hydrated and to get out of the sun when it's too much for you. Wear a hat or go in the shade rather than put on loads of sunscreen that has very toxic ingredients in. There are a couple of things you can look out for to see if you're dehydrated. So the area under your eyes corresponds to the kidneys. So if somebody is dehydrated, often they'll have like discoloration, dark discoloration in that area. And also look at your urine. Your urine should be light in colour, straw coloured or clear. And if it's not, if it's dark, then that's a strong indication that you are dehydrated. And also look at your urine in the morning when you first wake up. If it's dark in the morning, you're not drinking enough water. And even if you have to get up in the night to go to the toilet, it's better to do that than be dehydrated. A lot of people don't drink enough because they don't want to get up in the night. And I think the answer to that is to have a dark, quiet sleeping place. Just get up, go to the toilet and go straight back into bed. And then it doesn't really disturb your sleep that much because as soon as you're back in bed, your head on the pillow and you're asleep again. So yeah, I think definitely keep hydrated in the day. Be mindful of the UV and be mindful of the climate where you are. Because when I was in England in the winter, I wouldn't drink water sometimes for weeks. I was very hydrated. I wasn't dark under my eyes. I was urinating frequently. My urine was light in colour because the climate is so different. So the climate's a huge thing, I think, with in relation to hydration.
Yeah, that's true. The zinc oxide that you mentioned, Chris also mentioned as well, right? And
Mm.
we forget that our skin is our biggest organ, and we do observe everything. So that's a good tip. I try not to put. I only started to pay attention to the UV index because here it could get as high as 11. Like if I were to leave midday. So I try
Mm.
to avoid. And Japanese are pretty good. Like they, instead of putting lots of cream, they would, put the long sleeves, and so that's a good thing. But also, Japanese people are so scared of the sun at the same time. The
Yes,
sun is good. Sun is good, but of course, the midday you might want to avoid, and also
yes.
protect from
Yeah,
the sun. This,
yeah. And I think that's an important point. The sun is vital. The sun is vital for good health. We need vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency has been linked to all kinds of issues. And vitamin D, if you look at its chemical structure, it's more like a steroid or a hormone than your vitamin C or your vitamin B. It's
Mm.
very similar in structure to cholesterol. And studies have shown that when you have sufficient sunlight, there's a precursor compound in your body, and if you have sufficient sunlight, that will turn into vitamin D. But if you have insufficient, it will turn into cholesterol. And the further you are from the equator, the higher is the risk of heart disease. It's very interesting when they look at heart disease, and more heart attacks occur in the cooler months. So sun is very, very important. It produces all kinds of hormones that we need in the body. And if we're out in the daylight, our whole circadian rhythm is enhanced because we're not nocturnal creatures, we're diurnal creatures. We should be out. And one good tip that I've heard that I think is wonderful, if we can see the sunrise or be outside when the sun comes up and be outside as the sun goes down. And that really helps to get our body into that rhythm, help us to sleep better, help us to want to get up early in the morning and have lots of energy in the morning and get into that natural cycle that we have as humans. So, yeah.
Yeah, for from my bedroom, I can see the sunlight from mountain, and it's such a beautiful feeling. Just coming out, seeing the sun coming out of the mountain, and it's for that reason I actually have a room without any. It's actually I don't have any curtain. Um, you know, People say that we should have our room completely dark, but I get so excited seeing the sunlight, so I keep it open. Yeah, but yeah, definitely. I try to go out into my garden, and first thing in the morning. It's so beautiful. I don't have to cover up first thing in the morning, so yeah, speaking of that, you run. I'm wondering if you could share what's your day to day like. What do you do when you wake up in the morning? To what do you do? Just what time do you
Yeah.
sleep?
So I wake up quite early, maybe a little bit earlier in the summer, but generally about 4 o'clock, 4 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. I wake up, and so I will sometimes do some internet stuff, answer some emails before it gets light, and then when it gets light, I will go for a 10-kilometer run, which I do most mornings, and then when I get back from that, I'll have my breakfast and start work on the garden because we have 3 acres and it's pretty much a full-time job managing everything. So my day, unless I'm going out somewhere, looks like watering the garden, and we have a sprinkler system. So every half an hour, moving the hoses around, and that's great exercise because the hoses are quite heavy. They're like 20 kilos or something. So pulling the hoses around it's very good resistance exercise. Weeding, looking after the fruit trees, pretty much takes up the daylight hours. Then we have a little colony of wallabies, so we feed them with fruit and carrots.
I
So
enjoy watching, checking your Instagram. Such a beautiful post. Yes.
they're so sweet, they're so lovely, and so we have greenhouses, so cover them up, do the final round of watering for the day, and then I have a cat Jasper, and he's usually very well behaved with the wallabies. So as the sun goes down, we'll sit out, put the wallabies tea out, and they have papaya, organic bananas, organic carrots, and avocados, and they really love their avocados. And so we'll just watch them as the sun goes down. Then I'll come in and usually do a bit more internet stuff, and go to bed relatively early, about 9:30 usually. So and then get up at 4:30 again. But I find working on the garden, it's very good physical exercise. Also, if I mow once a week, and we probably have about 2 acres of grass. and I use a push mower with no fuel, so it's just a real mower, and that is such a great exercise because it works all the muscles just about of the body. It works your leg muscles, your arm muscles, your back, and your butt, and it's a resistance because you're pushing against the grass. So yeah, I think doing a lot of physical work in the garden is really good for general health, but also for sleep. I think because when you work physically hard, you just don't have any troubles getting to sleep. You go to sleep and you sleep very well. So yeah, I did work for 10 years for the Woodstock Fruit Festival, which was a great experience. But I think transitioning from working 8 hours a day on a computer to spending that time physically in the garden is healthier for me. And I feel that my health has improved with doing more physical work and spending less time sitting at a computer all day. So yeah, I feel very fortunate that I'm able to live this life. You know, it's lovely.
Oh my God, your day to day, like, what it's like, we should put it in a textbook for kids to learn. That's the way for human beings to live. Wow. And I'm really grateful that um you agreed to be on this channel because you have a very busy life, taking care of the garden. 3 acres is a huge place. How long have you been living there?
We've been here about 3.5 years. Yeah,
How many years?
3.5.
3.5. Okay, so oh, it's about the same time that I moved to my house in Kyoto as well. So you have a lot to do.
Yeah, there was a lot of, it was already well established. So in terms of there were a lot of fruit trees here already, but there's always work to do when you just weeding, and we don't use any chemicals, so it's all hand weeding. And I think for me that's really important
Mm.
because it's good physical exercise, but you're not putting any chemicals into the earth because it's not just us. We share this land with so many creatures, so many beautiful birds, so many beautiful marsupials and insects, and it feels really right to me not to add any poisons that's going to harm anything in this environment. And yes, it is harder work to weed by hand and to not use chemicals, but for me it's so important because we can't control what our neighbours do, we can't control what the councils do in terms of spraying chemicals. All we can control is what we do ourselves. And I think the more people that are gardening with intent and with love and not adding chemicals to the burden that the planet has with chemicals at the moment, I think it's a really good thing to be able to do that.
Yeah, in Japan, unfortunately, those chemicals for garden is so popular, and it's so cheap, and it's just everywhere. I get uh, like horror attack when I see it. When I see the bottles, like, why? It's not necessary at all.
Mm,
Yeah, so uh, I have a very small land, but it's such a joy, and it's always it's never ending work. And I can understand, like, you could spend a whole, it's a full-time job, but it gives back so much, right? I
yes.
I have never imagined that gardening. I don't even want to call it work. Gardening is such a joy to, you know, it's um, it's such a beautiful connection with nature, and anyone can start. Anyone can actually can
Mm,
start with sprouting. Even
yes.
living in an apartment. But so 3 acres. I would love to see more of your posts on your gardening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think every time you see a seed come up, it's a miracle. It's like you never get tired of a sunrise or a sunset, and it's like you never get tired. You plant. I recently had some grapes with seeds in, and it's rare now to get seeded grapes.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get them with seeds in, and I sort of put some of them to soak, and two of them started to sprout, and they're just coming up, little grape sprouts, and it's just so exciting to see them come up. And I think it's you never tire of it. It's a miracle every time that the power of life and the new seed sprouting, which can turn into a plant or a tree that can feed us, it can feed the animals, and it's just connecting with the world. And I think we were off camera, we were talking a bit about this earlier about how when you change your diet, you the blockages seem to go in some ways, and you feel a real connection to nature and sounds, and it's different. It's like if you're eating a poor diet and you're not living a healthful lifestyle, it's almost like you're muffled in some way, or there's some blockages that disconnect you. And then when you refine your diet and lifestyle, you feel so much more connected with everything. And the small things in life bring you so much joy. You know, just going for a walk through the garden or being on the beach or seeing a beautiful sunset. And you don't need so much artificial stimulation to keep you satisfied. So there's a simplicity, I think, in living on a fruit diet. And that's kind of what attracted me a lot at the beginning, the simplicity of it, because I'd done macrobiotics and I'd done a lot of sprouting. And both of them are quite time consuming. With the macrobiotic diet, I felt very well on it, but it was 4 hours a day cooking. And the simplicity of just having boxes of beautiful organic fruit delivered and just picking the fruit out and eating it kind
Mm.
of freed a lot of time. And I just like that simplicity of it. Although I did enjoy my time on a macrobiotic diet and I learned a lot of valuable things about health through reading some books on macrobiotics, which still stay with me now. But in terms of the simplicity of eating, I think it's hard to beat the fruit diet.
So true. I have so many questions for you now, but let's see. Um, so you have been on this fully raw fruit based diet, and were you ever sick or there were some difficult times along this journey? Because 34 years is a long time.
Yeah, I've had odd, like viruses. But what I found is if I have anything or injuries, what I found is that if I fast for say 48 hours and go on an orange juice, fresh orange juice monodiet for 5 days, that has tended to just clear up things very, very quickly. I had a bad bite from this cat that was like it was a domestic cat, but it had been ill treated by the people that it lived with. And I came across it and it bit me. And I got a really weird feeling because I love cats and I've never got a weird feeling from a cat before. And I was out walking with my son, who was about 18 months old at the time. And he wanted to carry on walking down the road. And I saw this cat. I said, no, we should turn back because I was getting these funny feelings. And he was saying, no, no, I want to carry on walking. And then I just thought, no, we're going to. And I picked him up. Luckily, I picked him up. And this cat launched itself at my leg. And everybody was saying, you have to get like all these injections, antibiotics, because cat bites are really dangerous. And I thought, well, I couldn't walk for 5 days, but I thought, I'm going to fast for 2 days. Then I went on orange juice for 5 days. I put lavender oil and tea tree on the wound and it was infected and stuff came out. And I kept an eye on it. I thought, if the infection spreads, I will, but I'm not going to take antibiotics unless I absolutely have to. And it healed. And I've had like viruses, and I've done the same thing. I got COVID a couple of years ago, and it was just before we were moving to our new place, and I thought I can't stay in bed very long because I've got so much to do. I've got to pack the house up, and I fasted for 2 days, went on orange juice for 5 days, and in a week I was totally back to normal. So I
Incredible.
that's my go-to. If something happens, if I don't feel so good, which is rare, I'll usually do a 2-day water fast and then I'll do 5 days on orange juice, and that really seems to help the immune system deal with whatever it's being challenged with.
That's amazing. So 30, I mean, ever since you have been on the raw vegan journey and fruitarian diet, you didn't have any like sickness besides the viruses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had little bits, and I did get tropical ulcers. That was probably the most serious illness I got. I stayed with some people that had tropical ulcers, and
What is tropical ulcers?
it's a type of sort of bacterial infection, and it passes very easily from person to person. And even my younger son got it, and he never got anything. It's very contagious, and that was the sickest I've been. Um, because the infection kind of got into my blood. But apart from that, I've not had anything serious at all since
You
I've been
didn't
on.
go to see a doctor when you.
Yeah, I had to actually go into hospital in the end because there was I got a blood clot in one of my legs. So they took me into hospital. I didn't want to go, but they took me in. But yeah, so that was the most serious illness I had. But apart from that, I've had really, really good health. Yeah.
Amazing. And your husband is not he raw vegan or vegan or
He's vegan, yeah. My husband's vegan. So when I met him, he was just on a standard diet, and I never like pushed anything because I think if somebody wants to eat a certain way, I'm very open to share information with anybody, but I think everybody has to make their own decisions, and everybody is responsible, for their own diet, and their ethics have got to be taken into consideration. Everyone's got different ethics.
Mhm.
And then a couple of years after I met him, he said, I'm going to go vegetarian for the year. And then he watched, I think it was Earthlings, he watched a documentary, and then that was it. He went vegan, and he's been vegan ever since. And it's quite hard for him because he works away. And so he's in camps, and sometimes they don't even have like proper vegan food for him, but he does very well. So yeah, and he loves fruit, so he eats a lot of fruit as well. And um, you know, and he's very supportive. He thinks the fruitarian diet is, a really good and optimal diet. So yeah,
Fantastic. And you've been with him for how long?
for 7 years. Yeah.
7 years, yeah. That mutual respect is so important. Like my husband, he is not raw vegan, but by default he is raw vegan because more high raw vegan because I'm the one who's preparing most of his meal. But yeah, it's so important that you can respect his choice, right? Because when you are
Mm,
forcing other people to eat the same way, you make yourself so miserable. And that's,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
the most difficult. Yeah.
And I think we have to realise that if we have children and we're making choices about their diet, we are responsible for them in a way, but ultimately we're only responsible long term for ourselves. And I think I would never say everybody has to eat this way or this is the best diet for everyone. I think it's really important that people find the diet that works best for them. And some people find that they do better on 90% raw or 80% raw because of cravings they may have or because of social situations. And I think to come from a place of non-judgment is important to what other people are doing, because at one point in my life I ate meat, I ate dairy products, so who am I to say you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that? But I'm always open. If somebody said to me, what are your thoughts on this, or what would you advise for this, I'm very open to sharing my experiences and what's worked for me and what's worked for me bringing up children on a fruitarian diet. But I think when we get into blanket prescriptions for everybody, everybody should be doing this. And I do believe if we were fifth or sixth generation raw vegans, we'd probably all have very similar needs. We'd probably all have great teeth and a good sized rib cage, good lung capacity. We'd be able to assimilate B12 and produce our own B12. But over thousands and thousands of years, people have gone off our natural diet, and that changes our RNA, it changes our DNA. And so there are people that do a raw vegan diet and don't supplement B12 and are fine. There's other people after 18 months have got severe B12 deficiencies. So there's differences. Some people have a more challenging time going onto a fruit-based diet. Some people go onto it easily with no transition and just like they've always been made to eat this diet. So I think individuality is very, very important. And Arnold Ehret, who's a pioneer of the fruit-based diet, he said something which I think is very true. He said, the reason that most people fail on fruit diets and fasting is through individual specification not being taken into consideration and changes over time. So not only do we all have individual needs, things change over time. There may be a time in your life when you need more of one type of food, or you need more fat, or you need less fat. And to say, I'm going to be a fruitarian, and I'm going to be a fruitarian for 34 years, and that's it. I think it's very important to do your research and to build a solid foundation to have faith in this diet through reading, through research. I'm still learning so much, and I feel I'll always be learning. I'm still interested to hear different people's opinions on things, study anatomy, physiology, dietetics, all these kind of things. And you've got this solid foundation. And I think that helps a lot as well, because people say, oh, don't people criticize you or your diet or the fact that you brought up your children on this diet. But when you've got a lot of knowledge of stuff and when you have faith in the diet, not blind faith, but a genuine faith built on experience and research and reading, then I think that's mirrored back. And I think people, they'll ask you a question, you'll be able to tell them the answer. Well, where'd you get so-and-so from? Where'd you get this from? And I think having knowledge and faith in the diet really helps with our social reactions with other people. If people can see that you're not sure about what you're doing, they'll pick up on that and they will grill you about it, you know.
Yes,
But
I
if
definitely have.
yeah, if you think, well, I've read all this, I've researched this, I've got, you know, I feel really confident that this is right for me, then it's very hard for anybody else to shake that. They can try, but, you know,
Right.
it's,
So I had that quite just like any most people in the beginning was very difficult because people were criticizing me and it was affecting me. But so for you, did you because I mean, did you have that criticism or people questioning your diet?
I didn't so much, I don't think. And I think, you know, especially with my children, a lot of people say, well, didn't people criticize you bringing up your children on this diet? And I think because I was well, I was healthy on the diet. My children were very well and healthy. They didn't get any of the usual childhood illnesses. They were well behaved. They were just, you know, great kids. And I remember I did a talk once about the fruitarian diet in Brisbane, in Australia. And afterwards, this man came up to me, and my younger son would be about 3.5, 4 at the time. And he said, I was very impressed by your talk, but I was more impressed by the behaviour of your child, because he couldn't believe that my 3.5-year-old had sat on a chair for this whole, it was like there were two presentations all together and a break in the middle. So 4 hours he'd been like sitting there. And he wasn't hyperactive, you know, he could just sit there and listen, even though he was probably bored. So I think when people see that your children are happy and they're healthy and they're well balanced, it's very hard for them then to say, you know, oh, you're doing this wrong or you're doing that wrong. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. And for the supplements, you're not taking any supplements either.
I am taking B12 at the moment. Now, when I was pregnant, when I was breastfeeding, I took B12. And probably over the years that I've been on this diet, I have like taken B12 for only a handful of years, really, if you add it all together. But recently I decided to take B12 again. Um, I did an experiment a couple of years ago where I took it for 6 months and I didn't feel any different. Now, I know if people have B12 deficiencies and they take B12, usually in an injection or a sublingual, they immediately feel better. I didn't feel any different. When I've had my B12 tested, it's always been in normal range, but towards the lower end of normal. But recently I did decide to take B12, so I'm taking B12 at the moment. I think it is important not to be low in B12 because it can cause neural damage. But I do believe some people are able to get some of their own B12 if they're eating naturally grown fruits that have bacteria on. You might be getting some B12. I do believe some people can actually produce it in their guts and absorb it in their guts because what happened before we had B12 supplements, and there's a lot of animals that eat purely plant products and don't get B12 deficiencies. So I believe there's the potential to be very healthy and happy and not take it. The other supplement that I would recommend is vitamin D if you don't live in a sunny area. I'm fortunate. I live somewhere where there's sun all year round, and we're also close enough to the equator, so the angle of the sun produces vitamin D most of the year. Because it's not just if the sun's out, in places that are further from the equator, even if it's sunny, if the sun is not at the right angle, you can't get vitamin D from the sunshine. So I think it's really important to get your levels checked if you're not sure, and either supplement vitamin D or get a vitamin D lamp. You can get lamps. Spurty make them, they're an American company, and they don't make you tan, they just produce vitamin D. I think the sun is best because the sun gives us other nutrients as well as vitamin D. But I think for me, it's vitamin B12 and vitamin D that you need to be mindful of if you're on a raw vegan diet, and supplement or get a vitamin D lamp if you need to. The other thing is iodine. Now, where I live is quite a way away from the coast, and I'm told by a few people that the soil here is quite deficient in iodine. If you live near the coast, the soils will be much higher in iodine because you get salts that evaporate up and they go down from the sea into the earth. So recently I've started having some seaweed, which I haven't done for years and years and
Oh,
years. I did when I was on a macrobiotic diet, but
great.
because I didn't want,
Interesting. This is
yeah,
so exciting.
yeah,
Seaweed.
I didn't want to supplement inorganic iodine because if you supplement inorganic iodine, you can actually burn your thyroid. You can destroy your thyroid if you have too much. It's not like, vitamin C. If you have too much vitamin C, well, or vitamin B, you're just gonna, urinate it out. Iodine can actually, in too high a quantity, can actually damage the thyroid gland. And I didn't want to take inorganic iodine. And because I've been told by several people the soils here are deficient in iodine, and most of I put seaweed onto my soil, so hopefully the fruit I'm growing here might actually, be higher in iodine. But I did recently, it's only like a couple of months ago, I decided to get some seaweed and just have a small amount of seaweed in addition to my fruit, just to ensure that I'm getting sufficient iodine. I didn't have any symptoms of iodine deficiency or hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, but if we're not getting it from our food, if our food's grown in an area where the iodine is low, I think again, that's one to be mindful of is iodine if you're living far away from the coast. Just
So
to
did you
be,
check did you get the blood test, or like how did you find okay, you started taking B12 and it was still normal range, and it
mm,
wasn't in your doctor didn't tell you to take it, is it?
no,
But you
no.
just felt like maybe it's essential for long sustainable.
Yeah, no, I haven't been told to take it because I've been in normal range when I've had a blood test with B12. But I've kind of decided as a bit of an experiment. Like 2 years ago, I took it for 6 months just to take it because I don't think it's particularly harmful if you supplement it. And I'll probably do it for a while and then stop it. And I haven't noticed any difference in how I feel. And I think if you are deficient in B12, you will notice the difference. If you're actually clinically deficient in B12, when you take it, you'll feel a lot better because people will feel tired or they'll have numbness in their extremities or a sore tongue. There's very clear symptoms of B12 deficiency, but I haven't ever had any B12 deficiency symptoms, but I just felt like, I suppose I just take it for a while just in case my levels are lower than they should be. So,
That's great
but
that
yeah,
you're open-minded about it. And then the seaweed, what kind of seaweed do you eat? Do you take?
I there's a few. There's one actually that I put on the garden, and it's for plants, and I sometimes have a little bit of that because it's not poisonous or anything. But the
Oh, nice.
plants do well on it. The plants do really well on it, and apparently, if you feed this seaweed, it's in a powder, and you dilute it and spray it on the plants, it increases their tolerance to cold. So if a plant can normally only tolerate 5 degrees centigrade, and you put the seaweed on, it then can tolerate 1 degree centigrade, and it makes them grow really well. So I thought, well, I'll just have a little bit of that. But I also got some wakame and some hijiki and some raw nori because with nori it can often be toasted, but you can also get it raw, and
Right.
just have a little bit for the iodine.
You
Yeah.
just eat it as it is, mono.
With the wakame, I just soak it and have a little bit as it is. With the nori, I might put a little bit on some avocado if I'm having some avocado.
Oh,
Yeah.
those are beautiful combination. I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's been already 1 hour. I have so many more questions, and but um, y- yes. So supplements, I really love that you're open-minded and you still, even after many, some decades on this diet, you're open-minded. You're still learning, and I love learning about that about you. So thank you so much for sharing that, and.
Thank you.
And because it's already 1 hour, over 1 hour, is there anything else that you wanted to share? I think you have shared such a vital information. If anyone is interested in diet, but yes, please share.
Yeah, I think just very quickly, my three things for thriving long term on this diet and lifestyle, and it should be thriving. It's not about sackcloth and ashes. It's not about denying yourself stuff. I mean, the whole immense variety of fruits is amazing. You can eat so many different fruits and never ever get bored. But my three tips to thrive long term on this diet, the first one would be ready for it. Be ready emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And a transitional diet can really help with that. For me, it helped a lot because I realised what worked for me. What worked for me best was 100% raw. In my transitional period, I did 80%, 90%, and I was only having some steamed vegetables. But I realised my mouth tasted different in the mornings. I didn't smell as nice. I didn't feel as good as when I was on 100%. And that transitional period eased me in, and it also made me know that 100% raw is the best for me. I'm not saying it's the best for everyone. So be ready. That's the first one. The transitional diet can be very helpful. Both Essie Honorable, who was a pioneer of the diet in South Africa, and Arnold Ehret both recommended transitional diets. The second one, eat really good quality fruit, grown in good soil and grown without chemicals, and picked not too underripe. Ripeness and soil quality, both vital in terms of fruit quality. So that's the second one. And the third one is to have faith in the fruit diet, but not blind faith. So what we talked about earlier, building up your knowledge, networking with people, reading, researching, looking at your own experiences, looking at other people's experiences, and have this solid foundation. And that doesn't mean that you sort of like think I'm set for life. You're always reevaluating things. You're always mindful. Is this working for me? Do I need more of this, less of this? Do I need more exercise, less exercise? So it's those three things I think are very important. Being ready for the diet, accessing and eating really good quality fruit, and having faith in the diet. So yeah, that's what I'd like to finish on. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just cannot thank enough for someone like you who has been in this community for such a long time, known by everyone, and you're so always so kind. And I was questioning Anne earlier, like, were you always this nice? And she shared that her mother was very sweet, but also on this journey, you kind of polish through your character, right? So I think you are definitely a blessing to the world and definitely to this raw vegan community, fruitarian community. So thank you so much, Anne, for showing up. I really appreciate all your generosity and time and sharing your knowledge. So I didn't even get to read the message. Oh, Sachi said love to Kiko and Anne. Um, being healthy, glad to see Anne Osbourne here. Bravo, Kiko. Oh, I think that's great. James Luke. Good morning, Kiko, and hello from Perth, Australia. Oh, that's so nice. Uh, that's very nice. I think there are other people who joined through Instagram and Facebook, but I will check that later. Again, thank you everyone for joining, and I definitely learned so much from her today. Never-ending learning experience. So, and I am definitely for your retreat or fruit festival in Queensland where you're living. That sounds like an amazing plan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks for everyone for joining, and please subscribe and hit the like button.